Hi, it's our last class on this level. Next week we start with the natal interpretations, and I'll just need to just confirm with everybody. I'm going to do the charts, but I won't put anybody's name on it, so we have the charts and we can go through the steps, but nobody has to know whose specific chart it was. Okay, but today we're dealing with the angles, and the angles are something very different. They're special. They're sensitive points. Up till now, with planets to planets and planets to the sun and moon, these are dealing with functions and functions affecting functions and how two functions react to each other and the energy that happens between them. How much stress, basically, how much stress or not stress, and how that can show, or how you can get alert to it. Now we're going to see the angles that are charted are four distinct sensitive points. And I find them, that the houses are built around them, but these sensitive points are the primal points in the houses. They divide between rising and setting, above or below the horizon. There's sensitive points just between them. So the IC, the ascendant, the MC, and the descendant. And each of these are how we're anchored. This cross, this is the same as news, northeast, west, south. Or really, as we're looking out from the north, yeah, to the east, to the south, to the west, yeah. So I just like the word news because it means northeast, west, south, and that's how what's happening in the four directions. So with the chart, you're starting to deal with really personal, sensitive points of how we're anchored into life. And the aspects have a distinctly, what do I call it? Almost a more obvious influence as they come in and affect them, a noticeable factor. They're, it's like where the aspects between the planets, each planet, regardless if there's a square or opposition or whatever, you still have to use the planets and the sign and the house they're in. With the angles, they'll have a sign that they're in, but they're the angle. So it affects our daily behavior, our basic anchoring into life. So when aspects hit them, they're trials or tests or challenges that affect these sensitive points and our manner of expressing them. So they affect how we're here in life. They're more direct. The influence is more direct or more substantial, I guess would be the word, than between the planets. So if there's aspects between two planets, and one of the planets is on the angle, it piles up to the angle. And then it's technically, if some planet's on the angle, it's called accidentally dignified. But if a planet's on the angle and that's a conjunction, that's an aspect going to it. But even any aspect to an angle really affects your behavior. And if you can't see them, it's possible the time may be a little bit out or not, because these are normally there. But again, with aspects is energy. It's not so much how you define it, but the puzzle of how does this manifest? How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to work with it? So again, it depends on how well you know the sensitive points and how well you know the angles. And the angles are really points between the rising or setting, or between above or below the horizon. They're the main critical divisions, like the divisions between the seasons and the year. So they really represent the point going from one to the other. Okay, and so we got to go through all of them today, and I just thought, so it's going to be a little faster than our usual class with more to cover. But just like here with this chart, I've been always having Carl Jung's chart up on the screen when during this class, just so there's an example there, but pull it out. Okay, so when you see, the way we draw the charts, and we have the ascendant, we have the shaded in half. You see the half below the horizon in the chart. That's the subjective half, subject being above the horizon at the objective functional half, outer and inner and outer dimensions. But the lowest point within is the IC, the deepest point in our subjective being. Now, as you see in this chart, the midheaven and the ascendant aren't squared. So the IC isn't exactly 90 degrees from the ascendant. It can be a wide variation depending on how far north or south of the equator you are. So the IC isn't always square, the ascendant. This is where equal houses is kind of a concept. They work in the right ascension chart, or the chart based on the equator. But when we're working with the zodiac, the houses are unequal. They're measuring different areas of space, different timings. And when you get it way up north, it really makes big differences. You got 5 signs in one house and 5 houses in one sign. It can be that extreme. Anyways, there's always, the IC and the MC will always be anchored. They're the main anchor. What's above, what's going south, what's going north. It's that line where the zodiac cuts that meridian, the north-south meridian above you, the highest point of the zodiac. In the Arctic circles, it's not exact. It doesn't have to be the highest point. It's the point where the zodiac crosses the north-south line from where you're standing. So the line from the North Pole over your head to the equator to the South Pole. It's like the top of the chart, but really we're looking when it cuts the zodiac. That degree is the midheaven, and the opposite is the IC. So that's fixed no matter where you are. Then depending on north or south you are, the ascendant will fluctuate up and down, probably more square towards the equator, and then move up more extreme. So this chart was done for 47 North 36. So it's in Germany. It's fairly high latitude. Okay, but we're always looking at this bottom point. This is why I shade what's below, what's above, and then I have these points where I draw the line in so I can see the IC, the MC, and the ascendant and descendant right away clearly on a chart. Okay, it's your anchor into life.